All right, ladies and gentlemen, it appears that Wuthering Waves is about to be under attack again, because something that occurred during Wuthering Waves version 2.2 that many might be familiar with might actually be happening again. But before I describe the situation in the present, you're gonna need to have some context for as to what occurred in just our most recent patch of the game, right before the anniversary, right before the Steam release, and how there was an active role that a lot of communities, that many are believing actually belong to Hoyoverse, called XJJ, what role they played in this level of sabotage. So let's go ahead and look at some of the prior videos that I had made in the past regarding this issue. As we're all familiar, in Wuthering Waves 2.2, they released two very, some could say scandalous additions to the game. We had Cantarella and her flesh pocket, as well as Fleurdelys with the outfit that she was wearing over here. And so the issue was that these two examples within the game went ahead and were mass reported to the CCP. And the result of that was A, the designs got censored very fast, and B, the game was then pushed to a 16+ rating in multiple regions. And if you're not familiar with what a 16+ rating means, that means that your game isn't going to be able to run all the ads that they want. There's going to be like content advisory warnings. A lot of the marketing was likely going to be pushed from digital storefronts online, from YouTube, all those different things. And with the Steam release of the game actually coming out right after this rating change was made, this was a huge issue for Kuro Games. And so they went ahead, they had to do all that censorship, and thankfully, we were able to confirm that the game was actually brought back to a 12+ rating with this video, Kuro Sage Wuthering Waves, due to, of course, all the censorship changes that they made. And so when it comes to how this actually occurred, ladies and gentlemen, it turns out there were a lot of haters of Kuro Games that were going ahead and mass reporting it. And there's actually a lot of documented studies that this group in particular was actually called deranged. I'm not going to try to pronounce it because I'll fuck it up. XJJ, who have a record of being purely MiHoYo fans, would go ahead, AstroTurf Games, pretend to be concerned citizens, and from the inside out, begin to gradually ruin communities. And the end result was that, based off of verified reports, there were people giving instructions for how to mass report Cantarella and Fleurdelys, their previous models in version 2.2, over to various departments at the CCP. And many attributed these directions and these movements and these sort of like, all of this press online regarding the issue to XJJ. And they literally have a track record of causing massive problems with like different factions. One that's like more front facing, while the other is a little bit more behind the scenes. And the end result was that, wow, people were able to finally get to the issue of how this was happening and why Kuro's hand was being forced into making some of these censorship changes that's pretty clear they didn't want to make. And thankfully, after the release of version 2.3, Kuro Games was able to readjust the censoring of Fleurdelys, which originally was, let's be honest here, this was a far cry from what we had before, and they were able to find a bit of a happy medium. Credits to Fobmaster, who proceeded to, get a viral post over here of 2.9 million views and 1.2k retweets, and a bunch of 12-year-olds yelling at him and calling him a pervert. Credits to him for providing this gameplay photo over here of what it looks like in the current version of the game. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, it appears that XJJ, all of those individuals that we just talked about before, it appears that they're looking to strike again. More fake concerned citizens seeing a design like this, clutching their pearls and saying, oh, this isn't something we can have in a 12+ game, despite the fact that games like Nikke, Brown Dust 2, all of those, Zenless Zone Zero, games like that, they're 12+. But Wuthering Waves, no, they can't have something like this. This is too much. So with that, let's go ahead and go back to that original post that we were talking about before. Sorry if the context was long, but it's been a couple of weeks, almost a month. Actually, it's been 3 weeks since the issue came up. And, with how memory works nowadays, some of y'all might have forgotten. So let's get back to it. We got a Wuwa Unfiltered post over here. And the title is, a certain part of the CN community is trying to mass report. Forgive this guy's English. I don't think it's his first, second, third, fourth, or even fifth language. A certain part of the CN community is trying to mass report Cartethyia again. they did that to Cantarella when she was released, and we've gotten over all that context over there. The top comment of the post can be roughly translated to, we can start reporting now. And the comments below it providing templates for how to report the game. And guess what, guys? Wasn't that the exact same thing that we just saw for Cantarella? It's literally the same photo with the same department in the CCP, the same exact procedures to mass report it. And the end result is, unfortunately, it looks like Wuthering Waves is going to be under attack again. And so naturally, all of this stuff is in Chinese. And, you know, the fact that this guy's English isn't that great, I'm assuming he is Chinese, and he is doing a rough translation for us. And it's not surprising, right? We already just saw what Cantarella's model looks like in-game, and with her being released as a playable character and, you know, essentially sharing the same exact assets, it's not surprising that there's going to be a second round of reports, and another issue is going to be had. But this isn't the only problem that I foresee occurring in the version 2.4 update, because ladies and gentlemen, well, there's some other issues that we might have coming to the game, because we've got some other additions that might similarly be reported, perhaps censored, or perhaps there'll be another topic of discussion across XJJ, and that's going to be the swimsuit skin of Chang Li, who we expect to be rerunning in 2.4, as well as the swimsuit skin of Carlotta, who we also think is going to rerun in 2.4. And when you combine all of these new additions alongside a movement to report, an impetus to mass report by these CN communities, guys, I'm not going to lie. I'm typically not somebody that wants to put too much weight into like the, you know, into like crackpot conspiracy theories, all of this sort of stuff. But when we're able to demonstrably see the level of damage that was being done by these covert XJJ communities in such a little amount of time in version 2.2, where they got the age rating pushed to 16 plus, and they have literal Wikipedia articles in CN about how deranged these groups actually are, and that they're actually recognized by the official Chinese government as being like an e-terrorist group. This isn't like fake news. This is like an actual thing. Like, these are real, these are like real cyber crimes that have been recognized by the Chinese government. And this is the level of threat, or really, this is the type of threat that the most dedicated fans of MiHoYo are bringing to the table in this situation over here. And I'm gonna be real with you guys. I just said before, I don't really put too much weight into like that conspiracy theory stuff. I'm a little bit scared. I am a little bit spooked. We've seen the damage that these guys can do, how coordinated their efforts are, and the only hope that I can imagine is that the fact that Kuro Games has already withstood and tanked one of these attacks, and then they understand what they're able to get away with. They understand what's going to keep them at 16 plus. The fact that they went ahead and they still put this in the game leads me to believe that they probably have somebody from the CCP, somebody from that department that the game was mass reported to, not necessarily under payroll, but they're probably in close communication with somebody that's in charge of like deciding those age ratings, right? And then they can develop, make updates. They probably made this update with the full supervision and like the full approval of the industry or the part of the government that was responsible for having the age rating bumped up in the first place. And the end result is, I can only hope that some level of coordination with the CCP, with the government, was done to make this initial change. And so we shouldn't have to worry too much about some coordinated effort by XJJ to ruin this and also ruin these. So this will be my take on the entire situation. I don't think that we should necessarily worry too much about what's going on, but do keep in mind that if some level of censorship does happen, if the skins don't necessarily look 100% like what we're seeing here, maybe her shawl is like a little bit less transparent and not as much as it is over here. Yeah, maybe her shawl is a little bit more transparent, or maybe you don't see as much skin, you know, maybe across like the hips or something over here with the Carlotta skin. I would say, don't think of it as Kuro deciding to censor the game themselves and take something away from you gooners, But think of it as Kuro simply doing what they need to do so that they don't get sabotaged again and get their age rating bumped all the way back up to 16 plus after all of the hardship, all of the troubles that they went through, just getting it back down to 12 plus. Because guess what, guys? This might mean that marketability on Steam, suddenly there's an adult-only tag or some random shit like that labeled onto it. It becomes mature in different regions. You stop being able to run ads for the game in specific regions as well. There are a lot of consequences for a rating like this being added back to the game, or even a rating like this being added to the first place. And there's a reason why Kuro moved so quickly to get that initial set of censorship updates made available ASAP to bring it back down. And they've done the work, right? They did the work to bring it back, and they did the work to keep it, hopefully, more manageable for the future. So I think we've covered everything when it comes to this issue. All we know is that people are looking to have another attack. That's a lot of upvotes for a post that's just saying we can report now. And I do believe this is probably like some sort of XJJ community. So if you hear any more about this, or if I do get assassinated by people from CN, well, you'll know who it was. So hopefully that's provided more insight on the issue and perhaps a little bit of more, some calm, collected thoughts and not necessarily a huge amount of panic. Let me know what you all think. Peace.